Hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to Blue Flame. If you enjoy true tales that linger in the shadows of the open road, if you've ever felt that quiet chill when headlights appear behind you on a lonely stretch of highway, then you're in the right place. Before we begin tonight's story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Your support helps bring more bedtime tales like this to life. Now, dim the lights, settle in, and let the night unfold. In the late autumn of 2023, just as the last amber leaves clung stubbornly to the skeletal branches of the Ozark foothills, a young woman named Eloan Vance found herself stranded on the shoulder of US Route 65, somewhere between Harrison and Marshall, Arkansas. The hour was past 10, the sky, a heavy quilt of charcoal clouds, and the air carried that sharp, metallic scent that often precedes a storm. Eloan had been driving north from Little Rock, returning from a weekend visiting her ailing grandmother, when her aging Honda Civic sputtered, coughed once like a dying animal, and rolled to a stop with a final sigh of steam rising from beneath the hood. She tried calling roadside assistance, but the signal flickered in and out. This stretch of highway, carved through dense pine and limestone bluffs, was notorious for its dead zones. Her phone battery blinked red. The wind picked up, whispering through the tall grasses that lined the road, and every passing truck sent a shudder through her bones, not from the vibration of the pavement, but from the loneliness that pressed in like a second skin. After nearly an hour of waiting, with no headlights slowing, no Good Samaritan pulling over, Eloan began to consider walking. But the nearest gas station was miles away, and the woods to the east swallowed the moonlight whole. Just as she was about to wrap her jacket tighter and take that desperate step into the dark, a pair of headlights rounded the bend, steady, slow, deliberate. The vehicle was an old Chevrolet Impala, its paint faded to a ghostly silver, chrome trim dulled by decades of road dust. It rolled to a stop a respectful distance behind her car, its engine idling with a low, rhythmic hum. The driver's window slid down, not electrically, but manually, with the soft creak of well-worn gears. "Need a lift," came a voice, calm, weathered, neither young nor old. The man inside wore a flannel shirt the color of dried blood, his face shadowed beneath the brim of a trucker's cap. He didn't lean forward, didn't smile, just waited. Eloan hesitated. Every warning from childhood echoed in her mind. Never get in a stranger's car, never trust the quiet ones, never assume kindness isn't a mask. But the wind howled louder now, rain began to spit from the sky, and the Impala's interior light glowed like a promise of warmth. She nodded. "Just to the next town," she said, voice barely above a whisper. He gave a single nod in return. "Hop in." The inside of the car smelled of leather, old tobacco, and something faintly sweet, like vanilla and motor oil. The radio was off. No GPS. No phone mounted on the dash. Just a worn map tucked in the passenger door, its edges frayed. As they drove, the man spoke little. His name, he said, was Corwin. He was heading north, same as her. Said he worked odd jobs, mechanic, handyman, sometimes just passing through. Eloan kept her eyes on the road, watching the white lines blur beneath the headlights. Something about the silence felt wrong, not peaceful, but heavy, expectant. Then, near mile marker 112, Corwin slowed the car. Not because of traffic, not because of a turn. He simply eased onto the shoulder again, tires crunching over gravel. "What's wrong?" Eloan asked, her pulse quickening. Corwin turned his head slowly. His eyes, pale gray, almost colorless, fixed on her. "You didn't see them, did you?" he asked. "See who?" "The others." She frowned. "What others?" He pointed ahead, down the empty stretch of blacktop. They're standing by the bend. 3 of them. Wet clothes. One's got a suitcase, the other 2 just staring. Eloan squinted. The rain had thickened now, drumming against the roof. But the road ahead was empty. Utterly, completely empty. "I don't see anyone," she said, voice trembling. Corwin exhaled, a long, slow breath that fogged the windshield. "That's because they only show themselves to those who've already been chosen." A cold dread coiled in her stomach. Chosen for what? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small, leather-bound journal. Its pages were yellowed, filled with neat, looping handwriting. He flipped to a page near the middle and handed it to her. The entry was dated October 31st, 1978. Same highway, same mile marker. A family of 3, mother, father, daughter, had vanished after their car broke down. No bodies, no wreckage, just tire tracks ending abruptly, as if the earth had opened and swallowed them whole. Eloan looked up, heart hammering. "Why are you showing me this?" Corwin's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I've picked up hitchhikers on this road for 50 years, and none of them ever made it to the next town. They always disappear, right around here. And tonight, you're the first one who's seen me before I vanished." Her breath caught. "Wait, what do you mean, seen you?" He turned fully toward her now, and in the dim glow of the dashboard lights, his features began to shift, not grotesquely, but subtly. His skin grew translucent, his outline blurred, like a photograph left too long in the rain. "I'm not real, Eloan," he said gently. "I'm what's left behind. A warning, a memory with wheels." She screamed, but no sound came out. The car doors were locked. The engine still purred, and outside, through the rain-streaked glass, 3 figures now stood in the road, dripping wet, eyes hollow, smiling. Then everything went black. When Eloan awoke, she was lying on the shoulder of Route 65, soaked to the bone, her Honda miraculously running again. The Impala was gone. No tire tracks. No trace. Only the journal, clutched tightly in her hands, now blank, every page wiped clean. She drove straight to the Marshall police station. Told them everything. They listened politely, then exchanged glances. Because, as it turned out, a man named Corwin Hargrave had died on that very stretch of road on Halloween night, 1978. His car had plunged into a ravine after swerving to avoid 3 figures standing in the road. To this day, locals say that on foggy nights near mile marker 112, if your car breaks down and a silver Impala pulls over, don't get in. Because the highway phantom doesn't pick up hitchhikers. He collects the ones who were never meant to arrive. Weeks passed after that night on Route 65, but for Eloan Vance, time no longer moved in straight lines. Mornings bled into afternoons with a hazy unease, as though the world had tilted slightly off its axis. She returned to her apartment in North Little Rock, but sleep refused to come without nightmares, visions of wet footprints trailing across her kitchen floor, the scent of old tobacco lingering in rooms she just aired out, and always, the low hum of an idling engine outside her window, vanishing the moment she pulled back the curtain. She tried to tell herself it was trauma, a stress-induced hallucination amplified by isolation and exhaustion. But the journal remained. Though its pages were blank now, they weren't empty. Sometimes, in the slanting light of dusk, faint indentations would appear, as if someone had written with invisible ink, pressing hard enough to leave ghosts of words behind. One evening, using a soft pencil and careful shading, she revealed a single sentence. Asterisk, you saw me. That means you're still here, for now. The police had closed her report with polite skepticism. No evidence. No witnesses. Just another stranded motorist with an overactive imagination. But Eloan knew better. And so did others. It began with a message, an anonymous comment on a local folklore forum where she'd quietly posted a redacted version of her experience. Corwin doesn't just haunt that stretch, the message read. Asterisk, he appears wherever the road forgets people. Look up the disappearances near I-40 in Oklahoma, or the old stretch of Highway 71 in Missouri. Same car, same voice, always offering help right before the vanishing. Just curiosity, sharp and dangerous, pulled her back to the road. Not as a victim, but as a seeker. She spent nights poring over missing persons reports, cross-referencing dates, locations, vehicle descriptions. Patterns emerged like constellations in a stormy sky. Every incident occurred on a rural highway during late autumn. Every witness described a silver Impala from the late 1960s. And every survivor, those rare few who claimed to have been picked up and then found miles away with no memory of the drive, shared one detail. The driver never asked for their name, but always seemed to know it. In early December, Eloan drove west toward Oklahoma, following a lead about a trucker named Jory Meldron who'd vanished near Salisaw in 2021. His rig was found abandoned on the shoulder of I-40, engine cold, coffee still warm in the cup holder. The only oddity? Tire tracks leading away from the highway into a field where no road existed. She stayed at a roadside motel with flickering neon and thin walls that groaned with every passing semi. That night, rain returned, not the gentle drizzle of Arkansas, but a relentless downpour that turned the parking lot into a mirror. Around midnight, headlights swept across her room's window. Slow, deliberate, stopping directly in front of her door. Her breath hitched. She didn't move, didn't breathe. The engine idled, steady, rhythmic, achingly familiar. Then a knock. 3 soft raps. Not urgent, not threatening, just waiting. Against every instinct screaming at her to lock the deadbolt and call 911, Eloan rose. She peered through the peephole. There he stood, Corwin. Same flannel shirt. Same trucker's cap pulled low. Water streamed down his shoulders, yet his clothes showed no sign of dampness. She opened the door just a crack. "What do you want?" she whispered. His voice was softer this time, almost sorrowful. "I didn't choose you, Eloan. The road did. And now, it's asking you to listen." "To what?" "To the ones who never got to say goodbye." He stepped aside, revealing the Impala parked beneath a broken street lamp. Inside, barely visible through the rain-streaked glass, sat 3 figures. Not the family from 1978, but others. A young man in a gas station uniform. An elderly woman clutching a rosary. A teenager with headphones still dangling around his neck. "They're not ghosts," Corwin said. "They're echoes. Trapped between the moment they disappeared and the moment someone finally believes them." Eloan's hands trembled. "Why me?" "Because you saw me when I wasn't supposed to be seen. That means you're tethered now. Not to me, but to the truth." He opened the passenger door. The interior light flickered on, revealing the same worn seats, the same vanilla and oil scent. But this time, the radio played softly, a static-laced broadcast of a song from 1979. Faint voices murmured beneath the melody, overlapping, pleading. "You don't have to come," Corwin said. "But if you stay silent, they'll keep appearing. To others. To drivers who won't survive the encounter. You can help them cross, or you can let the highway keep its secrets." Rain soaked her hair, her shirt, her resolve. She thought of her grandmother's stories, how some spirits aren't evil, just lost. How sometimes the bravest thing isn't running, but listening. She stepped into the car. The moment the door closed, the world outside blurred. Trees stretched into smears of green and gray. Road signs melted into symbols she couldn't read. Time bent like a heat mirage. Corwin drove in silence, his hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on a horizon only he could see. They passed through towns that shouldn't exist, gas stations with prices from the 1980s, diners with neon signs buzzing in forgotten dialects, bridges marked with rusted plaques bearing names erased from modern maps. Each time they slowed, one of the passengers would vanish, stepping out without a word, dissolving into mist as their unfinished business was acknowledged, their final moments witnessed. By dawn, only the teenager remained. He turned to Eloan, eyes wide with fear and hope. "My mom, she thinks I ran away," he said. "But I was just trying to fix my bike on the shoulder, and then the lights." Eloan nodded. "I'll find her. I'll tell her you didn't leave. You were taken, but you're remembered." The boy smiled, small, fragile, and faded like morning fog. When the Impala finally stopped, Eloan found herself back on Route 65, near the exact spot where it all began. The sun rose pink and gold over the Ozarks. Birds sang. The world felt ordinary again. Corwin turned to her. "It's done for now. But the road never sleeps. And neither will you." He handed her a small key, old, iron, shaped like a compass rose. "Keep it. When you hear the engine again, you'll know why." Then he started the car and drove east into the rising sun. This time, the Impala didn't vanish. It simply grew smaller until it became a speck, then nothing. Eloan walked to her Honda, which started on the first try. On the passenger seat lay a folded newspaper clipping, dated November 2nd, 2023. Headline, asterisk, local woman reports strange encounter on Route 65. Authorities find no evidence. Beneath it, handwritten in neat script, asterisk, thank you for seeing us. She drives less now. But when she does, she keeps the windows down, even in winter. Listens for the hum of an old V8 engine. Watches for silver glints in the rearview mirror. And sometimes, late at night, she types another story, posting under a pseudonym on obscure forums, sharing fragments of truth wrapped in caution. Not to scare, but to prepare. Because the highway phantom isn't hunting. He's guiding. And those who understand that might just make it to the next town. Months turned into a year, and Eloan Vance's life settled into a quiet rhythm, one woven with threads of the ordinary and the uncanny. She kept her job as a reference archivist at the Central Arkansas Library System, but her evenings belonged to something else entirely. In a small room above a used bookstore in downtown Little Rock, she began compiling what she called the Ledger of Lost Roads, a meticulous, handwritten record of every verified encounter with the silver Impala, every missing traveler whose last known location aligned with Corwin's appearances, every whispered account from truckers, night shift nurses, and runaway teens who swore they'd been offered a ride by a man who knew their name before they spoke it. She never published it, never posted it online in full. This wasn't folklore for entertainment, it was testimony. And testimony, she believed, demanded reverence, not clicks. Then came the letter. It arrived on a Tuesday in early October, tucked inside a plain brown envelope with no return address. The paper was thick, cream-colored, slightly yellowed at the edges, as though it had been waiting decades to be sent. The handwriting matched the journal, looping, deliberate, achingly familiar. Eloan, it began, asterisk, the road is restless again. Not just here, but everywhere. Something has changed. The veil thins faster now. More are slipping through, not just those taken by accident or tragedy, but those who chose to vanish and now regret it. They're calling louder, and I can't carry them all, asterisk. Beneath that, a single line, asterisk, meet me where the pines bow to the river. Midnight, bring the key, asterisk. She knew the place instantly. Devil's Elbow, A sharp curve along the Buffalo River where Highway 7 cuts through limestone bluffs so steep, locals say the trees grow sideways out of respect. It was a spot infamous for accidents, ghost lights, and, according to Cherokee legend, a doorway between worlds. That night, Eloan drove alone, the iron key cold in her coat pocket. The moon hung low and full, casting long silver fingers across the wet asphalt. Autumn had returned in full force. The air smelled of damp earth and burning wood from distant chimneys. As she approached Devil's Elbow, her headlights caught something ahead, not a car, but a figure standing in the center of the road. Corwin. But he looked different. Older. Frighlier. His flannel shirt hung loosely on a frame that seemed less solid than before, as if he were slowly dissolving into the mist rising from the river below. When she stepped out of her car, the ground beneath her boots felt strangely warm, humming faintly, like the surface of a sleeping engine. "You're fading," she said, not as an accusation, but as a sorrowful observation. He nodded. "The longer I stay, the more I become like them. Not quite gone. Not quite here. Soon, there won't be enough of me left to drive." "Why?" she asked. "What's causing this?" He gestured toward the woods. "People forget. When stories stop being told, when names are erased from reports, when families move away and stop visiting graves, the tether weakens. I'm not just a spirit, Eloan. I'm a memory made manifest. And memories die when no one remembers." A chill ran through her, not from the cold, but from understanding. Her work wasn't just documentation. It was preservation. Every entry in her ledger, every anonymous post, every late-night conversation with a stranger who'd seen the Impala, they were stitches holding the fabric together. "There's someone new," Corwin said quietly. "A woman. Disappeared 3 nights ago near Branson. Her car was found idling on Route 16, driver's door open, coffee still steaming. No footprints. No signs of struggle. Just gone. And you think she's with the others? She's fighting it. Refusing to cross. Says she has a daughter who needs her. But the longer she resists, the more she unravels. She's starting to appear to living drivers, standing in the road, waving, screaming, but they swerve, or worse, they hit her. And each time, she fractures a little more." Eloan's chest tightened. "What can I do?" "Go to her. Not as a witness. As a bridge. Tell her daughter she didn't abandon her. Tell her the truth, that love doesn't end with disappearance. Sometimes, it's the only thing that keeps a soul from scattering." He reached into his pocket and handed her a small, water-stained photograph. A woman with kind eyes and short, curly hair, holding a little girl on a swing. On the back, written in pencil, "Mara and Lila, Lake Tenecamo, summer 2024. She's waiting near the old ferry dock," Corwin said. "But be careful. The road knows you now. It watches. And not everything that answers your call is me." Before she could respond, his form shimmered, like heat rising off pavement, and for a heartbeat, she saw through him to the trees beyond. Then he was solid again, though paler. "One more thing," he murmured. "If you hear a second engine, deeper, rougher, don't stop. Don't look. Just drive." Then he turned and walked into the woods, vanishing not with a flash, but with the slow certainty of fog retreating at dawn. Eloan drove through the night, following backroads lit only by starlight and intuition. By sunrise, she stood at the abandoned ferry dock on Lake Tenecamo, the photograph clutched in her hand. The water was still, glassy, reflecting the pale pink sky. And there, sitting on a rotting bench, was Mara. She looked almost real, wearing jeans and a faded band t-shirt, barefoot, hair damp as if she just stepped out of the lake. But her edges blurred when Eloan blinked, and her voice carried an echo, as though spoken from the bottom of a well. "You're not supposed to be able to see me," Mara said, eyes wide with fear and wonder. "I was sent," Eloan replied gently, "by someone who carries the lost." Tears welled in Mara's eyes, tears that didn't fall, but hovered like dew before vanishing. My baby, she thinks I left her. Her father, he told her I couldn't handle motherhood. But I was coming home from work. I stopped because my tire was flat, and then lights, and a voice saying, 'Get in, I'll take you somewhere safe.'" Eloan knelt beside her. He wasn't lying. He did take you somewhere safe, from the crash that would have killed you 10 minutes later. A drunk driver crossed the median right where your car was stalled. You were spared, but now you have to let go. Mara shook her head violently. "No. If I go, she'll never know." "She will," Eloan promised. "I'll make sure of it." She spent the next hour listening, letting Mara pour out every unsaid word, every fear, every lullaby she'd meant to sing that night. And as she spoke, Mara grew brighter, clearer, as though speaking her truth anchored her soul. Finally, Mara stood. "Tell Lila, I watch her every night. When she sleeps, I tuck the blanket tighter. When she cries, I whisper her favorite song. And when she looks at the stars, I'm the one winking back." Then, with a smile that held both grief and peace, she stepped backward into the lake. But instead of sinking, she rose, dissolved, became a ripple of light across the water. Eloan returned to Little Rock with a new mission. She tracked down Lila's school through public records, wrote an anonymous letter to the child's teacher, framed as a community kindness project, and included a copy of the photograph, along with a note, "Your mom loved you more than anything. She never left you. She was taken too soon, but she's still with you, always, *. Weeks later, a news segment aired locally. A young girl had drawn a picture for a school art show titled, "My Guardian Star." In it, a woman with curly hair floated among constellations, holding a swing. The teacher, moved by the child's conviction, shared the story with the local paper. Strangers began leaving flowers at the ferry dock. A small memorial plaque was installed. And somewhere on a lonely highway, an old Impala idled a little longer. But Eloan noticed something else. The dreams had changed. Now, instead of being chased or trapped, she stood at crossroads, handing keys to strangers, pointing them toward exits they hadn't seen before. She woke each time with a new name, a new location, a new fragment of a life interrupted. She understood now. She wasn't just a witness. She was becoming part of the mechanism, the human anchor that kept the phantom's purpose from fraying into chaos. One evening, while updating her ledger, she found a new entry already written in her own handwriting, though she had no memory of writing it. Next stop. U.S. Route 50, Nevada. A miner named Thornvale. Vanished during a dust storm, 1996. Still waiting for his dog to stop howling at the empty road, *. Beneath it, a single sentence in Corwin's script. "The road chooses its keepers wisely." Eloan closed the book, placed the iron key on top, and looked out her window. Headlights passed in the distance. Somewhere, an engine hummed. And the night, vast and ancient, held its breath. For the journey wasn't over. It never would be. As long as highways stretch through the dark, as long as hearts break from unanswered goodbyes, the phantom will ride. And now, so will she. The desert air of Nevada tasted like rust and silence. Eloan had driven for 3 days straight, following the pull in her bones more than any map. Route 50, the loneliest road in America, stretched before her like a scar across the earth, flanked by sagebrush, skeletal Joshua trees, and mountains that watched with ancient, unblinking eyes. She'd left Arkansas under a blood moon, the iron key tucked into the hollow of her necklace, its weight a constant reminder that she was no longer just a passenger in this story. She was part of its engine. Thornvale's name echoed in her thoughts like a struck bell. A silver miner from Ely, last seen checking his truck's radiator near Heighten Summit during a freak dust storm in the spring of 1996. His dog, a scruffy border collie named Rook, had been found 2 days later, alive, dehydrated, howling at the edge of a dry wash, collar still bearing Thorne's faded bandana. The case had gone cold within weeks. No body, no evidence of foul play. Just another man swallowed by the vast indifference of the Great Basin. But Eloan knew better. Indifference didn't leave tire tracks that vanished mid-stride. Indifference didn't make dogs mourn for 28 years. She arrived in Ely just after dusk. The town clung to the edge of Steptoe Valley like a stubborn root, its streets lit by sodium lamps that cast long, amber shadows. At the local diner, Maggie's Pit Stop, she ordered black coffee and asked casually about old mining families. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Darla, paused mid-wipe. Thornvale, she repeated, voice dropping. Honey, that name don't get said much round here. Bad luck, some folks say. His old cabin's still up near Robinson Summit. Rook lived there till he passed, 5 years back? Folks swear they still hear barking on windless nights. Eloan's pulse quickened. Did anyone ever see anything? After he disappeared? Darla leaned in, glancing toward the kitchen. Old man Crenshaw, he used to run the gas station, claimed he saw a silver car idling near the summit the night of the storm. Said the driver waved, but when Crenshaw blinked, it was gone. Like it had never been there. Eloan nodded slowly. Corwin had been here. Of course he had. That night, she parked her Honda at the base of the trail leading to Thorne's cabin. The moon was a sliver, offering little light, but the stars, oh, the stars, blazed with impossible clarity, as if the sky itself were trying to guide her. She hiked for an hour, boots crunching on gravel, the desert wind whispering through the rocks like a language just beyond comprehension. The cabin stood crooked against the hillside, its wood bleached gray by decades of sun and wind. The door hung ajar. Inside, dust motes danced in the beam of her flashlight. A rusted coffee pot sat on the stove. A cot with a moth-eaten blanket. And on the wall above it, a faded photograph of Thorne and Rook, both grinning, arms, or paws, around each other. Then she saw it. On the windowsill, a small, smooth stone with a single word carved into it. She sat on the cot, the key cold against her skin. Minutes passed. Then hours. Just as doubt began to creep in, just as she wondered if the road had led her astray, a low rumble vibrated through the floorboards. Not thunder. An engine. She stepped outside. There, parked on the ridge overlooking the valley, was the Impala. But it wasn't alone. Beside it stood a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a miner's cap with a dead headlamp. His boots were caked with dried mud, his flannel shirt torn at the shoulder. He held a rusted pickaxe loosely in one hand, but his eyes were fixed on the horizon, filled with a longing so deep it made Eloan's throat ache. Thorne, she called softly, turned, not startled, not surprised, as if he'd been expecting her all along. You're not him, Thorne said, voice rough like gravel under tires. But you're connected. I can feel it. I'm here for you, she replied, and for Rook. At the dog's name, Thorne's face crumpled. He waited, didn't he? Every day, until his last breath. Thorne looked down at his hands, translucent now, shimmering like heat haze. I thought, if I stayed close enough, he'd find me again. But the longer I lingered, the more the road pulled me away. Now I'm stuck between the dust and the stars. Eloan stepped closer. Corwin tried to take you that night. But you refused, didn't you? He nodded. I heard Rook barking. I thought, if I just held on, I could get back to him. But the storm, it wasn't just sand and wind. It was a door. And once you step through, you can't unstep. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn bandana, the one Darla had given her from the diner's lost and found, just in case. Rook's scent still clung to it, faint but unmistakable. Thorn's breath hitched. He took it gently, as if it might dissolve in his hands. He remembered me. He never forgot. For a long while, they stood in silence, the desert breathing around them. Then Thorn looked toward the Impala. He's waiting, isn't he? He always is. Thorn walked to the car, pausing at the passenger door. Before he got in, he turned back. Tell the folks in Ely, I didn't run. I love this place. I love that dog. And I'd do it all again, just to hear him bark one more time. Then he slid into the seat. The Impala's engine purred to life, not with a roar, but with a sigh of release. Headlights flared, casting long shadows that didn't match the shape of the car. And as it drove away, not down the mountain road, but straight into the starfield above, Eloan felt something shift inside her, not grief, but completion. Back in town, she visited the small animal shelter on the edge of Ely. She left the bandana in a glass case beside a framed photo of Rook, with a simple plaque, asterisk, faithful to the end. And beyond. Just days later, as she prepared to leave Nevada, a package arrived at her motel. No note, just a small wooden box. Inside lay a miner's lamp, cold, unlit, and a single silver coin stamped with the year 1996. On the back, etched in fine script, asterisk, for the keeper of Crossroads. She placed it beside the iron key. The road called again that winter, this time from the icy stretches of Minnesota's Highway 61, where a folk singer named Linus Greer had vanished during a blizzard in 2010, his guitar found upright in a snowdrift, strings still humming. She went without hesitation. And so it continued. From the swamps of Louisiana to the cliffs of Big Sur, from forgotten turnpikes to midnight interstates, Eloan walked the thin places where the living and the lost brushed shoulders. She never stayed long, never sought fame. But in diners, libraries, and truck stops, whispers began to spread of a woman who listened to ghosts and helped them say goodbye. Corwin appeared less often now. When he did, he was quieter, more distant, as if his purpose was nearing its end. During one rare meeting near the Oregon coast, he told her, "You've taken the wheel, Eloan. Not literally, but in spirit. The road recognizes you now. It will guide you, as it once guided me." She asked him what would happen when he finally faded completely. He smiled, a real smile, warm and human. "Then you'll be the one offering the ride. Not to take, but to release." She didn't fear that day. She prepared for it. Years passed. Her hair silvered. Her steps slowed. But her eyes, those remained sharp, watchful, full of stories that could not be spoken aloud. She never married, never had children of her own. But in a way, she became mother to countless souls who'd been lost to the asphalt and the dark. And still, on certain nights, when the fog rolls low over Route 65, or the desert wind howls through dry canyons, or snow blankets a lonely northern highway, a silver Impala can be seen idling on the shoulder. Sometimes, the driver is a man in a flannel shirt. Sometimes, it's a woman with kind eyes and a key around her neck. They don't speak unless spoken to. They don't stop unless needed. But if your car breaks down, if your heart is heavy with unsaid words, and if you're brave enough to look past the headlights, you might just find a way home. The years folded into one another like layers of sediment, each season adding its own weight to Eloan's journey. By the time she reached her late 40s, her name had vanished from public records, replaced by quiet legend among long-haul truckers, roadside diner regulars, and the occasional paranormal researcher who chased whispers instead of proof. She no longer kept a permanent address. Her home was a well-maintained Subaru Outback with reinforced suspension, a sleeping bag in the back, and a locked glove compartment filled with photographs, letters, and small tokens left behind by those she'd helped cross over. She'd learned to read the road like a language. A sudden drop in temperature on a summer night. Static on a dead radio channel that hummed a familiar tune. The scent of vanilla and oil where none should be. These were not warnings, they were invitations. In the spring of 2031, she received a postcard with no return stamp. It showed a black and white image of an old covered bridge in Vermont, its wooden planks warped by time. On the back, written in a shaky hand she didn't recognize but somehow knew, asterisk, he's waiting. The bridge remembers. Come before the thaw, asterisk. She drove northeast through rain-slicked Appalachians, the mountains rising like sleeping giants cloaked in mist. The bridge, Hargrave Crossing, was real, though barely used now, bypassed by modern highways. Locals called it Widow's Arch because, according to town records, a man named Elias Hargrave had vanished there in the winter of 1952 while trying to repair a downed power line during an ice storm. His body was never found. His truck sat abandoned on the approach for weeks, frozen solid, keys still in the ignition. Eloan arrived at dusk. Snow still clung to the shaded banks of the river below, but the air carried the first breath of thaw, damp, earthy, alive. She stepped onto the bridge, her boots echoing on the worn planks. Halfway across, she stopped. A figure stood at the far end. Not Corwin. Not a stranger. An older man with a thick wool coat and wire-rimmed glasses, leaning on a wooden cane. His face was lined with decades of wind and worry, but his eyes, pale gray, almost colorless, were unmistakable. "Corwin," she whispered, though she already knew. He nodded slowly. "I borrowed a face. One that fits the place." Elias was a good man. He stayed near the bridge all these years, thinking his wife might come looking. She never did. She remarried, moved to Maine, lived a full life. But he didn't know. So he waited. Eloan walked toward him, the wood groaning softly beneath her. And now he's ready. But he asked for one thing, to hear her voice one last time. From her coat, Eloan pulled a small digital recorder. Weeks earlier, she tracked down Elias's widow, now 93, living in a coastal nursing home. At first, the woman had been hesitant, even angry. But when Eloan gently explained that Elias hadn't abandoned her, that he'd died trying to restore power so her hospital wouldn't lose heat during the storm, something softened in her eyes. She'd recorded a message. Just 3 sentences. "I never stopped loving you, Eli. I thought you left me. I'm so sorry I didn't wait." Eloan pressed play. The voice, thin, trembling but clear, filled the space between the bridge's arches. Corwin closed his eyes. A single tear traced a path down his borrowed cheek. When the recording ended, silence settled like snow. Then, slowly, Elias's form began to brighten, not with light, but with peace. He turned to Eloan and smiled. "Tell her? I heard her." And with that, he stepped off the bridge, not falling, but rising, dissolving into the mist above the river until only the echo of his sigh remained. Corwin's borrowed face faded next, peeling away like old paint, revealing the familiar flannel shirt, the trucker's cap, the weary kindness that had guided so many. "You're tired," Eloan said softly. He looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing not just the woman she was, but all the roads she'd walked, all the souls she'd carried. "So are you. I don't mind. I know." He reached into his pocket and handed her a small, leather-bound book. identical to the one from her first night on Route 65, but this one was filled. Page after page of names, dates, locations, and short epitaphs. Asterisk, let her know I kept the garden. Tell my brother I forgive him. She was worth every mile. This was mine, he said. Now it's yours. She took it, the leather warm in her hands. What happens to you now? He glanced toward the horizon, where the first stars were beginning to pierce the twilight. I've been a memory for too long. But memories need keepers. You've become mine and theirs. When I go, I won't vanish. I'll become part of the road itself, the hum in the tires, the glint in the rear view, the reason someone slows down when they see a figure on the shoulder. He stepped closer. One day, Eloan, you'll feel that pull too. Not as a burden, but as a calling. And when you do, don't fight it. The road chooses its guardians well. Then, without another word, he turned and walked into the trees. This time, he didn't fade. He simply wasn't there anymore. Eloan stood on the bridge for a long time, listening to the river below, feeling the weight of the journal in her hands. She knew, with quiet certainty, that she would never see Corwin again. Not as a man, not as a driver, not as a guide. But she also knew he hadn't left. He'd become part of the current that now flowed through her. She drove south that night, not toward any specific destination, but toward the next whisper. A week later, in a coastal town in North Carolina, she met a fisherman's widow who swore she saw her husband standing on the pier every full moon, holding his favorite pipe. Eloan listened. She recorded his last words, spoken through a medium who turned out to be his childhood friend, and delivered them in person. The widow wept, then laughed, then planted a garden of sea lavender in his name. In Arizona, she found a teenage hitchhiker who'd vanished in 2015, his backpack still leaning against a gas station wall. His ghost had been replaying his last steps for years, confused, scared. Eloan sat with him under a mesquite tree and explained that his ride hadn't betrayed him. The driver had swerved to avoid a deer and crashed. Both had died instantly. The boy's parents had never stopped searching. She helped him send them a dream. Asterisk, I'm okay. Tell Mom I love her pancakes. Each encounter deepened her understanding. She wasn't just helping the dead. She was healing the living. Grief, she realized, was a kind of haunting too. By 2035, her Subaru had logged over 300,000 miles. She'd crossed every state line, visited every major highway, and walked countless forgotten backroads. She'd grown quieter, more deliberate, her presence calming to those in distress, human or otherwise. One autumn evening, while parked near the Blue Ridge Parkway, she opened Corwin's journal to a blank page. She picked up her pen and began to write, not a name, but a reflection. Asterisk, the road is not a place of endings. It is a threshold. And those who walk it with open eyes do not fear the dark. They learn to see by its stars. As she wrote, the engine of her Subaru turned over on its own. Not with a sputter, but with a smooth, quiet hum. The headlights flickered on, casting a soft glow on the winding road ahead. She didn't start the car. She hadn't turned the key. But she smiled, because she finally understood. She wasn't just following the road anymore. She was becoming part of its rhythm, its memory, its mercy. And somewhere, in the distance, an old silver Impala idled, not to pick up hitchhikers, but to welcome its keeper home. The years that followed were quieter, yet deeper, like the hush that settles after a storm has passed through the trees. Eloan no longer chased every whisper. Instead, she learned to wait, to listen. The road, she discovered, spoke not in shouts, but in silences between heartbeats, in the way a certain stretch of asphalt shimmered at dawn, or how fog curled around a mile marker like a beckoning hand. She had become less a traveler and more a threshold herself. A place where the lost could pause, be seen, and finally let go. Her Subaru, now patched with mismatched panels and humming with the wisdom of countless miles, carried her through seasons that blurred into one another. She spent winters in the Southwest, summers along the Great Lakes, autumns in New England where the maples burned like embers. She never stayed long in one place, but people remembered her. A waitress in Flagstaff would set aside a corner booth, just in case. A librarian in Duluth kept a file labeled EV, hold for return. And in small towns across the country, if someone vanished near a highway under strange circumstances, a quiet rumor would rise. Asterisk, maybe she'll come. The woman who talks to the road. She never confirmed it, never denied it. She simply arrived when needed. In the early spring of 2038, a letter reached her via a network of truckers who called themselves the Night Watch. It was written on stationery from a defunct motel in eastern Kentucky, the kind with peeling paint and a flickering vacancy sign. The handwriting was childlike, uneven, as though pressed by trembling fingers. Asterisk, my brother didn't jump off the bridge. He was pushed, but no one believes me. His ghost stands there every night, looking back like he's waiting for someone to say his name. Please come. His name is Darian. He loved Blue Jays. Eloan packed her bag that same hour. The bridge in question spanned the Licking River near Salyersville, a narrow steel truss structure locals called Crow's Perch because of the birds that nested in its girders. Darian Ellis, 22, had been reported missing in 2016 after an argument with friends at a bonfire nearby. Authorities ruled it a suicide. His shoes and jacket were found neatly folded on the railing. But his younger sister, Marin, now 24 and working nights at a veterinary clinic, had never accepted it. Eloan met her at a diner just off Route 7. Marin's eyes were red-rimmed but fierce, her hands wrapped tightly around a chipped coffee mug. He wouldn't do that, she said, voice low. He was scared of heights. Couldn't even climb a ladder without shaking. And he left his phone behind, with a text half-typed, "Something's wrong with." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. That night, Eloan stood alone on Crow's Perch. The air was thick with the scent of wet stone and blooming dogwood. Crickets sang in the tall grass. And then there he was. Not at the edge, but near the center of the bridge, wearing jeans and a faded band t-shirt, staring not down at the water, but back toward the road. Darian turned as she approached. His form was faint, like smoke caught in moonlight, but his eyes were sharp with recognition. "You're not police," he said. "No," Eloan replied. "I'm here because your sister still calls your name." His expression crumpled. "She shouldn't. It hurts her." "It hurts more not to," she said gently. "Tell me what happened." He looked away. "We were drinking, joking around. Then Kyle, he'd been mad at me all night, said I'd been flirting with his girlfriend. I told him it wasn't true. He shoved me. I stumbled, hit my head on the railing. When I woke up I stood here, watching them search, watching them give up, watching my mom cry herself to sleep for years. And Kyle? He told everyone I jumped, said I was depressed. No one questioned it. Why would they? I was just gone." Eloan nodded. "Marin knows. She always knew. But she needs proof. Not for the police. She says justice won't bring you back. She just needs to know you're not ashamed. That you didn't leave her." Darian's ghostly shoulders shook with a sob that made no sound. "I'd never leave her. She was the only one who believed in me." "Then tell her," Eloan said. "Not with words. With truth." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small, smooth river stone painted with a single blue jay, Marin's doing, left at the base of the bridge every month for 12 years. She placed it in the air where Darian's hand would be. He touched it, or tried to, and for a moment his form solidified, glowing faintly. Tell her? I hear her. Every time she talks to the sky. Every time she leaves those stones. I'm there. I will. He looked toward the horizon, where the first hint of dawn tinged the clouds pink. It's time, isn't it? Yes. He took a deep breath that stirred the air like a passing breeze. Thank you for seeing me. And then, as the sun broke over the hills, Darian Ellis stepped backward, not into the river, but into the light, and vanished like mist burned away by morning. Later that day, Eloan sat with Marin on the hood of her car, watching blue jays dart between the trees. She handed her the painted stone. He held it, she said simply. Marin pressed it to her chest and wept, not with sorrow, but with release. Before Eloan left town, she stopped by the local sheriff's office. Not to accuse, but to leave an envelope marked for Kyle Reeves, when you're ready. Inside was a single sentence, written in her clearest hand. Asterisk, ghosts don't haunt the guilty. They wait for them to remember. She never learned if he opened it. But sometimes that wasn't the point. As the decade turned, Eloan felt a new shift, not in the road, but in herself. Her steps grew slower, her dreams longer. She began leaving small caches along her routes, waterproof boxes tucked beneath bridges, buried near rest stops, hidden in hollow trees. Each contained a page from Corwin's journal, a photograph, a key, and a note. Asterisk, if you find this, you're meant to carry it forward. She wasn't building a legacy. She was planting seeds. One rainy night in Oregon, while sheltering beneath an overpass near Astoria, she met a young man named Cale. He couldn't have been older than 19, drenched and shivering, thumb out despite the downpour. Something about him, the set of his shoulders, the way he glanced over his shoulder every few seconds, told her he wasn't just hitchhiking. He was running. She offered him a ride. He hesitated, then climbed in, dripping onto the seat. You're not afraid? He asked. Of you? No. She handed him a towel. But the road ahead, that's another story. He stared at her, then at the journal lying on the passenger seat. You're her, aren't you? The one they talk about. Who talks? People like me. People who've seen things. Heard engines that weren't there. Felt watched on empty highways. She started the car. Where are you headed? Nowhere. Everywhere. I don't know. He paused. My sister disappeared last year on 84. Cops said she ran away. But I found her backpack, with your name scribbled inside. Eloan's breath caught. What was her name? Leora. She closed her eyes briefly. Leora Mendez. Vanished near Pendleton. Case closed in 3 weeks. Another ghost waiting in the static. She's not gone, Eloan said softly. She's waiting for you to stop running. Cale looked out the window, tears mixing with rain on his cheeks. I didn't know how to find her. You already did, Eloan replied. By believing. That night, she took him to the spot where Leora's car had been found. And there, beneath a sky streaked with stars, Leora appeared, not as a specter, but as a presence, warm and real in the way only love can make a memory feel. She didn't speak. She simply held out her hand. Cale reached for it, and for the first time in a year, he smiled. Eloan watched them fade together, not into nothing, but into peace. She drove on alone, but not lonely, because the road was never empty. It was full of names, full of stories, full of those who had been seen. And as her hair turned fully silver, as her hands grew lined with miles and mercy, she knew her own crossing would come, not with fear, but with the quiet hum of an engine starting in the dark, headlights cutting through the fog, and a familiar voice saying, simply, asterisk, ready? She would be. Until then, she drove, listened, remembered, and somewhere, in the endless weave of American highways, a silver Impala idled, not to pick up hitchhikers, but to welcome every soul who finally found their way home. For years, Eloan Vance was believed to have vanished quietly, another keeper absorbed by the road she served. Her Subaru was found abandoned on a remote stretch of U.S. Route 50 in Nevada, engine cold, keys still in the ignition, journal open on the passenger seat to a blank page. No signs of struggle. No footprints leading away. Just silence, dust, and the endless desert wind. People assumed she'd crossed over, finally joining Corwin in whatever liminal space guided the lost. Truckers told stories of seeing her standing beside the silver Impala at midnight, offering water to stranded drivers, her eyes calm, her smile kind. Some even claimed she'd helped them find their way when GPS failed and hope ran thin. But then, the recordings began. They surfaced on obscure online forums, uploaded by anonymous users with no digital trail. Grainy dashcam footage. Distorted audio from roadside emergency call boxes. Security tapes from gas stations in towns that didn't appear on modern maps. In each, the same sequence played out. A driver, exhausted, alone, car broken down, sees headlights approaching. A silver Impala pulls over. The window rolls down. And it's not Corwin. It's Eloan. She looks older, paler. Her eyes no longer hold warmth, but something hollow, patient, ancient. Need a lift? She asks, voice smooth as gravel under tires. Most say yes. They always say yes. The footage cuts out the moment they open the passenger door. Then, days later, their vehicles are found, idling on the shoulder, doors locked from the inside, seats warm, radios playing static. No bodies. No signs of violence. Just a single item left behind. A small iron key and a page from a leather-bound journal, now filled not with names of the lost, but with names of the taken. Authorities dismissed the videos as hoaxes. But truckers stopped picking up hitchhikers after dark. Mothers warned their children never to accept rides from a woman with silver hair and sad eyes. And on foggy nights, near mile markers where the pavement cracks like old bones, people swear they hear two engines idling side by side, one deep and rumbling, the other quiet, newer, waiting. Because Eloan didn't cross over. She stayed. And the road, it changed her. It didn't need a guide anymore. It needed a collector. Now, when your car sputters to a stop on a lonely highway, when your phone dies and the stars go dim, and you see those headlights rounding the bend, don't look for kindness in the driver's eyes. Don't trust the familiar voice. That's not Eloan helping you. That's Eloan choosing you. And once you get in, you don't disappear. You become part of the hum in the engine, part of the whisper in the rear view, part of the reason others slow down and never stop again.